What is the greatest comeback you have said to someone that left them speechless? I went to Catholic high school and had to wear a belt every day as part of the uniform. One day I had forgotten the belt, and the vice principal, who was a very fat man, had caught me. He said, "Excuse me, young man, I can't see your belt." I stopped in my tracks and said, "Yeah, I can't see yours either." I was on the receiving end of 5 days detention for that one. Whoa, colder, read him his last rites first. I was at Target once with my then roommate and I was buying some Naya for some personal grooming. When checking out, my roommate made sure to say right in front of the female cashier, "Dude, why are you buying Naya?" I responded, "So you don't get hair in your mouth." That shut him up. I feel like Naya would burn like heck down there. Not me, but I was there for it, doing early document research way down in the basement of a big law firm, working on a med mal defense. This case involved where a guy went into an urgent care complaining about frequent urination. Doctor ran a few tests, prescribed him some medication for BPH and let him go. Eventually goes to another doctor, I think it was like a year later. He has prostate cancer and it's spread. By the stage it's inoperable. 95% of the time these cases are just grieving families channeling their anger inappropriately. Anyway, going through docs with me and 2 colleagues, let's call them Brad and Amy. Amy looks at some report and is like, "Yeah, our doctor is in the wrong here. This blood test has a normal range of XY. His is Z. This should have led to follow up. He probably would have lived if they caught it then." Brad looks at her and says in just about the most condescending voice possible, "And where did you go to medical school?" Amy answers, "Yale." Turns out, Amy had done her med school and left during her second year of rotations. Deciding that being a doctor wasn't for her, she decided to enroll in law school. All hail Dr. Amy, ESQ. So one Thanksgiving we were eating dinner at my BF's parents' house. BF's deadbeat cousin was there and kept going on and on about how the family dog recognized him the moment she smelled him. She's blind. My BF's sweet old grandpa was sitting beside me and leaned over to whisper, "It's hard to forget what crap smells like." I swear, older folks always have the best burns. Middle school. Peeing at the urinal. I was at the corner urinal slightly angled toward the wall because why not? I was an awkward middle schooler. Kid walks in. "What's the matter? Don't wanna show off your pee-pee?" Me. Instantly. "You're right. It would be showing off." I was so proud. Somebody at work said something like, "I'll give you 6 inches," and I immediately responded, "I don't need to see your dong 6 times. When I worked at Starbucks, there was someone who spilled a bunch of coffee and was trying to clean it herself. My co-worker walks up to clean it for real. "Coffee spiller. It's okay. I got it. I'm a waitress. I do this all the time." Co-worker, "You spill coffee all the time?" He was trying to make a joke, but she just looked at him with a blank expression and walked away. I played high school football one year, and after a scrimmage one of my teammates looked at me and said, "Hey, anybody ever told you, you suck at football?" And without thinking I replied, "Nobody that matters." He was a bully, but to be fair I really did suck at football. Classy and truthful. Your football skills aside, this is how all unsolicited insults should be handled. I was waiting tables out of high school and wasn't very outspoken to strangers. I had a table of 4 dudes, pretty loud, joking around, etc. I think myself funny, but again, this was before I was more outgoing. They got the salad bar and after they sat down with the plates from it, I asked if they found everything okay. One guy says, "No, where are the women at?" I said without even thinking, "They saw you coming and ran off." The whole table busted up and I got a great tip. Bold. Was in the army. A master corporal of mine overheard a sex story I was telling. He said, "Your sister doesn't count." I said, "No, but yours does." He laughed. I did drill for an extra hour. When I was working in retail, my manager, who was a bigger fellow, and I used to talk crap to each other for fun. One day he was congratulating himself for being such a good crap talker and he said something like, "I'm the king of throwing shade. I throw mad shade." To which I replied, "You do cast a wide shadow." 911, I'd like to report a murder. Because I'm ginger and somebody thought they had an easy target for a cheap laugh on the school bus in front of everyone. Bully. Oh you. Do you have ginger pubes? Me. Nah mate. Did. But they're all stuck in your mum's teeth. Never got picked on after that one. It's amazing what a sick burn and ensuing public humiliation can do for one's reputation. Hanging out with friends. Throwing crap at each other. My wife. No, not my face, it's my moneymaker. Me. No wonder we're always broke. She found it as hilarious as I did. Frick man. That's some high risk, marginal reward. I'd never be brave enough to lay that one out. I was at the gym about 6 months ago and this guy I went to high school with approached me. He graduated a year ahead of me and opened with snack and squats. I stare back at him uncomfortably. I recognize him but don't remember his name. I thought that was you. You used to be so weird. Everyone thought you were so weird. Yeah, probably. He starts telling a story about casually bullying me. The good old days. Sweet memories. Act. And then finishes it with, but you look so great now. I have always thought you were beautiful. What do you think about me? I don't think about you. He stared at me, and I continued to stare at him until he finally walked away. The classic high school glow up and rejection. So good. Was having drinks with a friend and an obnoxious guy comes over to say what a big dong he has. To which I stone-faced spit it out. It's not yours. He made a groaning sound and slithered off. Laughs all around. Someone did that at a party I was at and someone else said it must be like having a rocket launcher in your cupboard. It's big, it's powerful, but you're never going to get an opportunity to use it. Girl with a tape recorder and microphone outside a strip mall near the new year. Hi, I am taking a poll of New Year's resolutions. Me. Yeah, it's to not talk to strangers. As I walked right past her, I looked back and she was laughing. A coworker was talking about 2 lesbian ladies he saw in the subway. One of them was beautiful, the other one was ugly as FK. I understand why the ugly one is with the cute one, but what is the point of being with the ugly one? What is the cute one doing with the ugly one? Without even thinking, I said, well, you do have a wife, don't you? He stopped talking and everyone else was laughing so hard I felt a little bad for this guy. Woman at work asked me if her forehead was too shiny. I told her on the plus side, if you ever get lost in the mountains you can use it to signal aircraft. She slapped me, but not in a serious way. My friend in middle school was kind of a bee, and she was chubby. I remember her fighting with a guy and she said, I have more friends than you, and he goes, yeah, if you count chicken wings. I tried so hard to hide my tears from laughing. That reminds me of this fat chick who yelled at me as I tried to get by her in high school. I said, well, use your blinkers next time. B, she broke down hard. I don't even know where that came from. In high school, one of my wrestling teammates was bad. He only won around 15 matches in his entire high school career. He told me and another teammate that he was going to Arizona to wrestle. Without thinking, I responded, do they know you're coming? If he meant the University of Arizona, this is even funnier because we don't have a wrestling team. LMAO. Was over at a friend's house in junior high and his dad was making jokes about me having a small dong for some reason, but I just paid it no mind even though it bugged me. Couple hours pass and he comes in the room again and says something like, Dixie 745, you find your peen yet? Before I could stop myself I blurted out, yeah, it was in your wife's mouth. Needless to say I was asked to leave that day. Haha, honesty though, WTF, what he expecting? He was an appropriate way before you were. Apparently he could dish it but couldn't take it. Growing up my mom always made jokes about my intelligence, body type, just generally antagonistic, and I coped by ignoring it rather than fight back and incur the wrath. So I was real proud of myself the day she asked me, right before my birthday, hey, how old are you turning tomorrow? Me, 26. Mom, wow, that's old. Me, yeah, and what's that make you? Not really a comeback per se, but one time in middle school, I got caught cussing and sent to the office. Principal, does your mom go around cussing across work? Me, no. Principal, so if I call your mom, will she say she goes around cussing at work? Me, no. Principal, does your dad go around cussing across work? Me, yee. Principal, I doubt that. If you wanna call him, my dad is a steel worker. I used to work with this guy who would always bring up the fact that his dad walked out on his family. There could be two people having a conversation on the other side of the room, and he'd hear one of them say the word dad and he'd interject with something like must be nice to have a dad. I wouldn't know. My dad left us when I was 6 and we haven't seen him since. This guy was also just a generally unlikable person and kind of antagonistic towards everyone and everything, so he didn't generate much sympathy with these antics. One day I told him to do something and we had this exchange. You're not my dad. If I were your dad, I would have walked out on you too. Ouch. I bullshitted my way through an HTML course in college. Our final project was making a website for a company. Mine was a coffee company and it was perfectly functional but trash. It was ugly. All the colors clashed. It kinda did actually hurt your eyes if you looked at it for too long. The text was colored all fricked up and nearly blended with the background, so you had to really try to read it. It was really bad, but functionally perfect, which was the point. So as we were presenting, my instructor pointed out every visual flaw. She just reamed it. She said it was the ugliest site she had ever graded and I was lucky I wasn't graded on how visually displeasing it was. I made an effort to sound professional as I explained. My site caters to a younger crowd. You are not my target demographic. Thank you for your input though. It was probably as legend as I'll ever be. She was probably like 35-40 years old or something. Got a 100% though. That's perfectly acceptable in this case, especially if it was the mid-90s. When I was 8, I wanted to drink soda in the morning. My dad refused to let me have soda that early, so I said, "You're drinking beer this early." He didn't say anything, just walked over to the fridge and grabbed me a soda XD. He was watching a game with his brother, which is why he was drinking in the morning, not an alcoholic, lol. Back when I was a smoker, I went to a gas station late at night to buy a pack. It was late, so instead of going inside you had to order at this little walk-up window. When the attendant slid my cigs under the slot and I grabbed them, the kid behind me goes, "Don't you know smoking can kill you?" And I said, "Yeah, so can talking to strangers." Friend of mine used to be homophobic. We just arrived at a bar and he makes a joke about this not being a date. He follows up with, "You gonna pull out my chair for me?" I came back instantly with, "No, but I'll push in your stool." The entire group died laughing. I have never topped it and it's still an inside joke for the group. I have never topped it. Found the bottom. I worked in a technical writing capacity for a small, family-run company. The office manager was the owner's stepson and was a massive prima donna. He loved to belittle the office staff and make life harder for everyone with his condescending attitude and general incompetence. He once questioned the phrasing of a passage in a report that I wrote. I stuck to my guns and this raised his ire. He began to yell and sputter, "Don't you dare question me. I have an English degree." "Do you have an English degree? Do you?" As I watched his face turn progressive shades of purple, I replied, "Sorry Jim, after high school, they determined that I had sufficient command of the language and that no further study was necessary." I thought he was going to stroke out. Elementary school was great for these. Heard a girl say, "I'm worth more than you" to some kid and he snapped back, "Yes, with the same price per pound you are." Like, a lot. Left all of us rolling. I got my golden moment. 2. At my school there was this short dude called Lars who was always picking fights. He said to me once, "Can I call you King Skugsja 3? Imitating my dialect. And I instantly replied, "Can I call you Extra Lars since you're so freaking tiny?" Even his posse laughed and he never bothered me again. Back in high school, friend is in JROTC and is super gung-ho for all things military. He was known for talking down to people, calling them civilians in a distasteful way. We ran a few blocks and he noticed I was breathing more heavily than he was. Him. "Come on, man. You are running out of breath already. What are you gonna do when things go down?" Me. "When things go down, I'm not going to be the one running." He just looked at me and had nothing to say. I felt like a boss. Looking back, I understand that getting gassed out from running would translate to getting gassed out while fighting, but it still felt like a verbal body slam. Absolutely civilian. Me and my co-worker once. Him. "You're just like my liver, barely functioning and not doing your job." He's an alcoholic. Me. "You're just like my appendix, useless and have no purpose." This was 2 weeks ago and he's still livid. I said that to him. You're like my appendix. I'd pay someone good money to cut you out of my life. Very attractive and very gay co-worker of mine came into the room. He pointed to some short, scruffy facial hair and said, "What do you think?" I said, "Dude, if you need a beard, I'm right here." Dead silence. A full 3 seconds later, he, and everyone else who could hear us, cracked up laughing. Once the moment passed, I told him that I just couldn't leave a setup like that hanging. Back to business as usual. In a tantrum, my 6-year-old son told me I was a bad daddy. I immediately deadpanned he was adopted. The stunned look on my boy's face is seared in my brain. Not my proudest parenting moment. Tell your 6-year-old son he's adopted. Then tell him to pack a bag because they'll be here to pick him up soon. Two fads both in school. Someone knocks on the door to our class and the teacher, frustrated by the interruption, mutters, not so quietly, "Jesus Christ," and I couldn't help myself and reply, "Sir, I don't think it's him." Health class, our teacher is telling us that we should avoid organ meats. From the back someone pipes up, "Does that include chicken balls?" While working behind the counter at Mickey D's, customer, "Hey cutie, how about you slip an extra hash brown in that bag?" Me, "Sure, that'll be $1.07. I've had so many people do things like that at the pizza place I worked. They would always be so nice, right up until I told them however much what they were asking for free would cost. Then their vibe would just magically change. My uncle, who is loaded and has a passion for stirring crap, was making some comment about my boyfriend at the time, saying that he wasn't ever going to make much money and that he would never be able to bring me places or buy my nice things. All of this irked me on all sorts of levels, but eventually he said something along the lines of, "Don't you want a rich man?" I just looked at him as calmly as I could and said, "Nah, money makes people bitter. Screw him. Just because their family doesn't mean anything. Family is an earned title, not given." I have an older brother. When we were younger, we'd always do the classic back and forth argument over the dinner table, and it'd usually end with him saying some iteration of, "I'm older when you're 3 years younger." There's really no good response to that. But when I was 12 or so, I did some mental math and figured out with the best comeback ever. We argued about something and my brother said, "I'm older," and without missing a beat I replied, "I was planned." My brother, dad, and mom were all speechless, especially since my brother hadn't yet realized and my parents never told me that fact. For your information, the calculation was that my brother's birthday is in April and my parents were married in October the previous year. It was definitely a shotgun wedding. What happened afterward, Raffle? At a birthday party of a close friend, there was this super obnoxious guy. I think he was drunk already when he arrived and he told everyone stories from his super exciting live, regardless if we wanted to hear them or not. His favorite story was centered around him having been homeless on the streets for about 2 years. He didn't tell it in a humbling way, or as a sob story in order to make us pity him tough. He was basically using it to brag about how it made him stronger and he has seen it all. Nothing can get to him anymore. He told this crap to at least a dozen people at the party, all while drinking more and more and thus becoming even more obnoxious and confrontational. He started picking fights and so the rest of the guests decided that he had to leave the party immediately. He shouted and argued with us for a while, so we forcefully dragged him out of the door and told him to get lost. He stood outside for a minute or so and then told us we couldn't just throw him out like that, because he had no way to get home before morning and he would have to sleep on the street if we do that. At which point I just stared at him for a second and told him, "Well, that should be something you should be able to handle with all your experience, right?" The look on his face and his utterly stunned silence were priceless. TLDR. Guy at party keeps bragging about sleeping on streets. I tell him he shouldn't have a problem with being thrown out then. LOL. Karma got that prick quick. Back in high school, there was this girl. She was incapable of saying anything nice. Everything out of her mouth was an insult. The only nice things she had to say were about dolphins. She was crazy into dolphins. One day, the teacher handed back an exam we did. I was top of the class. When the teacher shared that news, the girl rolled her eyes, looked at me, and said, "You're such a pig." I held up my exam. Well, I guess this proves pigs are smarter than dolphins. First time she'd ever been rendered speechless. Fun fact, Pigs are, in most ways, smarter than dolphins. A druggie on the corner asking for change called me a W when I wouldn't give her any money. I turned around and said, at least W do something for the money they get on the corner. When walking through a turnstile, this girl stepped right in front of me. I was still partially in the turnstile, so it was difficult for me to move around her. After a second she didn't move and then hit me with the rudest excuse me I have ever heard. I paused for a moment and then in a very deadpan tone said, "Are you willing to die for this?" Absolutely shocked, she went through the other turnstile that was open the entire time. Annoying coworker asked me, "What do you even do all day?" I wasn't having it, not today, so I said, "Not wasting other people's time." The office went quiet. The president called me and congratulated me on the sweet burn. The hottest blonde fell into my lap and we made out. The boss let me go home early and gave me a raise. Everyone cheered as I walked out, and then I woke up. Frick. I'll just drop while that happened so that somebody can whoosh me. Wendy asked me why I locked my car, implying it was so crappy no one would steal it. I asked her why she washed her face. Not me, my buddy's wife. He said, "If you don't start having sex more, I'm going out and get some strange stuff." She pointed to her vag and said, "There's 4 inches of strange right here that you have never reached." I was in 9th grade English. We were reading House on Mango Street, which I quite enjoyed. The husky girl sitting next to me, not so much. She thought it was dumb and was making her opinion known to the whole class. There is a line in the book describing, I think, someone jumping off a roof. He fell like a sugar donut. The heavy-set girl next to me picked out this line for her critique. Fell like a sugar donut? What does that even mean? I shot back, of course you wouldn't know what it's like to drop a sugar donut. You'd catch it on the way down. The whole class roared. It was the best burn of my life, but I instantly regretted it the moment I saw her face. Clara, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I got super fat in college if that's any consolation. In Clara's defense, that really is a crappy simile, unless the character sort of bounced when he hit the ground and shed a load of dandruff from the impact. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.